Hi, hello. This isn't easy for me to do this, um, but I am going to do it, and I will be doing it more. And I think it's important that as we evolve as a humanity, that we are people who are using this technology, and this technology is not using us. I know this technology is using us, but as for me and my household, we will not serve the technology as much as possible. Um, and so I don't consider myself a content creator. Michael is a content creator, but he's more than that, based on the response that people and the community that's been built. Um, Content creation is amazing. Um, I just heard a podcast the other day, and I was like, whoa, that script, that sound quality, like that's professional. Um, and that's great. And I used to do that. There's earlier days in my life, I used to create really professional content. But that was back when like MySpace was the only social media. um, and there's a place for that. But then there's also, and then that is people using, potentially some using these tools, these media, these platforms, these channels. These are all really powerful words. Some people are using them as tools, but some are being the tools. So I really want to show up in this space with leading with my intention that this is not content, it's connection. Um, in the last video where I was interviewing Michael, I did show up very raw. I could see the discomfort in my nervous system, both from technology, frustration with technology right beforehand, irritation from a little quibble quarrel that Michael and I had just worked through, like right before I hit record, and like 10 days of an upper respiratory infection. This is, I admire the polished work of content creators, and it is my prayer that people will use these tools wisely. Also, I don't want to be a content creator. I desire, it is my intention to connect. We are oversaturated as a people with content, and really all of that content just takes away from the fact that like you are gold already. You've got it all in you. Just need to tap in, or lean on a brother or a sister for their encouragement or for their wisdom, and then you find it in yourself. So this is my connection to the Susquehanna Alchemy community, and this video is in line with celebrating that 10 years of Susquehanna Alchemy. It's also my response to Michael's video that he had to do on his own because I wasn't able to be present, and how unfeminist would it be of me to not show up, in my own response to some of the really beautiful YouTube comments that were made. I kind of say that passive aggressively, ironically. That was one of the things that was said. But um, let me, so I, part of this connection is like me being transparent and vulnerable. And if you're watching my face, I have notes over here. And so I'm going to be looking at notes to try to keep myself on track. Um, and also trying to check all my equipment so that it doesn't derail my attempts to connect. It's my hope to share some further inspiration and stories about Michael and Susquehanna Alchemy, to really bring in this like spiral dance. And Susquehanna Alchemy, if it's a being, is coming back into that center, that nest of the spiral. It really like spiraled out, and now it's like kind of coming back in, and honoring and recognizing and acknowledging the 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 alchemy that is happening in me, in Michael, in Susquehanna Alchemy, in technology right now, and in how we all relate with one another, and how we can all be users and not be used. That's not comfortable. Like, this isn't comfortable for me. I can already tell I'm gonna have like a minor headache after doing this. And so part of this is learning how to be more gentle on ourselves, and how to monitor our own content saturation. Um, and how do we use these tools to connect heart to heart, so that we're not just like passing on more content and just all like being up in our heads, but we're passing on like inspiring messages to one another and being soft and kind and gentle, but also speaking like truth, which is sometimes hard. And yeah, so I guess that's like where I want to go first is the hard, the gosh, sharing my oracle ears and my own alchemical experience in the backlash of celebrating Susquehanna Alchemy, and that long 2.5 hour interview that we didn't even get to finish posting yet. And how we thought it was like really important and special that Michael could go through and divulge his, his experience of carrying this and carrying himself throughout this process. Um, and so I first just want to say thank you to what the tube trolls. Michael says that they might not even be humans, because of how all this like AI stuff works. But I don't know how a robot would have known how to strike me as potently as these trolls shot their arrows into my heart. But thank you. Um, I'm sure that was like an easy like flick of a couple fingers on the phone to send that, but I just can't imagine, like really where that came from, like what the quality and condition of the space that came from. But maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's totally easeful, whatever. Thank you, because those critical voices, those kind of like dark arrows really um were really an opportunity. They were a crowning, if you will. Like, if we're going to call ourselves alchemists, we need, this is the stuff of alchemy. And so this 10 years of creativity and channeling of Susquehanna Alchemy was able to be brought through with real clarity, honor, transformation, and growth because of those comments. Had to get my charger. My notes pad was about to die. So thank you, whomever you are, whatever you are. I'm sure you've all noticed by now that we turned off YouTube comments. We had a really thoughtful conversation, thorough evaluation about YouTube at the platform space, about being users and not being used. And Susquehanna Alchemy is really coming back into the center and the nest of its being. And in that, there's a lot of vulnerability and intimacy as those things curate connection and community, and how it's becoming more and more important to be careful with how we use these online spaces, because we're inviting a heart-to-heart vulnerability. Um, so we can share that decision-making process upon request. I'm not going to get into it now, but basically it's that being users and not being used, and aligning our heart's intentions with these tools, and Telegram really being aligned with commenting and dialogue that is building and not just launching arrows. But I am grateful to have put myself in the position that I had these arrows of, I'll say, darkness launched into my heart. And with Michael's support, just like spread my chest open wider to let them pass through me. Because, that's like when we feel it, like we want to like, ooh, and catch it. And then it's lodged there. And the real alchemical work is to actually like feel that pain and open up your chest a little broader and a little wider to allow it to like pass through. But anyways, the troll comments did not invite me. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go watch myself. Like, how could that many people, thumbs up? I have to go look and see what they're talking about. And I could see that I wasn't bringing my best for Susquehanna Alchemy. Like I said, like we're really committed to showing up here, not as content creators, but as people who are part of a community who happen to be in this position. Michael and now me via like proxy. I don't know if proxy was the right word, but like by being the position that I'm in with Susquehanna Alchemy, this is just the nature of our role with it. We are committed to showing up as we are. Michael doesn't edit and polish his material. He certainly has more characters available to him because he's developed that over the years. But I'm coming in pretty raw and vulnerable as I am, because I believe so much in Susquehanna Alchemy, both because it's Michael's baby and kind of I'm an adoptive mother to it, and because Susquehanna Alchemy is so important to my mother's lineage that I've been on track with for quite some time now. So, yeah, I could see. Thank you for trolls are like they're just like must be really energy sensitive. Because I went back and I see, and God, it's so cringy to watch yourself on camera, but I could see in my nervous system how uncomfortable I was. But I'm not the type of person who, so we're back at the river house, and I'm not the type of person who walks into a communal space and puts on a happy face if I'm not happy. And I could see how in the beginning of that interview I wasn't happy. I would agree I was a little passive aggressive and I had an attitude. Not a fucking narcissist. I mean, honestly, I actually had a really great conversation with a very alchemical minded shamanic leader in this area. And she said, honestly, we all need to be a little bit narcissistic, because the real root of narcissism is like looking not at the pathological narcissist, but looking at narcissus. It is looking at oneself reflectively, but being mindful that you don't start getting obsessed with yourself in that reflection, which is why I'm so uncomfortable on screen, because I used to do this when all of this identity and screen stuff wasn't so much an issue. And then I saw what it did to individuals' souls of people who I loved. I saw what it was doing in the community, how it was taking away sincerity and real true relating, and creating all these facades. So anyways, but this has all been such a helpful process for us to define how we can be good to ourselves and bring forth this really precious part of Susquehanna Alchemy together in the next year. And so this whole opportunity has just been so perfect, because Susquehanna Alchemy wouldn't be coming back into its like center and its nest without alchemy happening, without character alchemy happening, without like currency flowing in the community, which those comments really did inspire a wealth of other commenting on other platforms and in other ways that were much richer and deeper than just like one-off kind of comments. And so there can be with alchemy. So I'm going to just try to get more into the meat of Michael's last video and of the core and the center of Susquehanna alchemy. There can be no dark is bad and light is good duality. There can't be like, ouch, this hurts, like make it go away. We didn't turn off YouTube comments because it hurt. We turned off YouTube comments because we're creating a stronger container. And then on the other side, there can't be this like, oh, this feels good. Like I never want this to stop. Alchemy is tough. Alchemy is things constantly changing. You know, just when something feels good, like let it feel good in that moment, but don't hold on to it. Letting the current like keep moving through you. I'm so grateful to be with someone who doesn't just like preach about alchemy, but has been a demonstration of alchemy himself as he has opened up and let the mystery ride through him. And I'm hoping to also demonstrate that and be a model of that with him as within just how I carry myself and my energy. And that I always accept dark and light as opportunities. They're both opportunities to weave an alchemical process in myself. They are always coming from a currency of the great river of life weaving through us all. I'm just going to get into some of my reflections on Michael's video and share with you some of what came through my oracle ears when he talked about mission drift. Mission drift is like a real thing that happens. I mean, not a real thing. It's like a language that is used in the nonprofit world. And it's usually like in the first 5 to 10 years, there's mission drift and you want to come back to recreating your mission and redefining your goals. Mission drift is such a positive phenomena. And because if you think about it, if you think about a snow drift or a sand drift, this is really the alchemy of the elements shaping, organically shaping the flow of energy around the form that you're presenting. And so Susquehanna alchemy kind of had this mission drift, and it was like Michael was realizing he wasn't reaching and like the amount of people he wanted to reach. So he went on YouTube and like drifted into this more like conspiracy storytelling and like then synchronistic storytelling. And it really achieved this goal of reaching more people under the banner of Susquehanna alchemy. And it, excuse me, and it got somewhat the message of Susquehanna alchemy in more people's ears. Like it was always available there on that platform. And so that's the drift. And it served a purpose. And it was like the wisdom of the wind kind of coming in and reshaping and forming. And like the vitality and excitement of the people who were receiving and giving feedback also created this like this drift formation in Susquehanna alchemy. And that's the real field. You know, like Michael created something, he created this baby, and then the community, the village raises it, and it becomes, you know, this whole being unto itself. And so this mission drift has been really exciting and fun for Michael and I to be looking at. It's kind of, you know, like that's why we shared or are sharing the 2.5 hour video, because it's kind of like looking at like a scrapbook of like when you were a baby, or looking at your own children's photos for like, wow, like how did it get from here to there? So as he was like going deeper in looking at the mission and the drift and the spiraling out and now like spiraling back in and coming to the center, and the center having always been. And what I thought I heard him say is the people turning from lead to gold. I mean, he said it like things turning from lead to gold, but I heard people, and my brain was like, oh my God, that is really, like that is the mission of Susquehanna Alchemy, is that for 400 years, we have been a people who have been led by the spells that were planted on the oldest, kind of spiritually strongest river. There's just this real opportunity for the people to turn from lead to gold. And I'm hearing the people turning from LED, being people who are led by the spell casting of the matrices and the media that are kind of controlling our minds and leading us around. So the people turning from lead people to gold people, GOALED, not lead, but gold. I don't know what that means. GOA, I'll have to look at that prefix. But gold being not like people who have goals, not people who are absorbed in like achievement and success. No, but people who have felt the power of like this energy of I am powerful, I am my own authority, I have desires and intentions, and I bring them out, and they come like they loop back into me. And it's really hard to kind of put language around this, but I think, probably if you're listening to this and you've gotten this far listening to my voice, you're on some type of track with me, and you can feel and see how Susquehanna Alchemy is the people turning from a people who are led around to a people who return to the wisdom of the land, the currency of the river, and are gold in and within themselves. Power, authority, sovereignty. We don't have goals. We don't have to do anything. We are here to be. We are here to be with one another and the land and the river. And there is an outpouring from us that moves us into animation and activity. But it's not because we have to do and achieve goals. It's because we're so immersed in our beingness that it just pours out into this spontaneous desire of intention and intimacy. And this is my fantasies, ideas about community coming through. So Susquehanna Alchemy is about turning the people from lead, people being led around, to people who are gold, who are kind of like within and of and unto themselves. Mic check. All right, we're good. So Uncle Mike has been a huge character in inviting people and inspiring people to go from being led to this real transformation of like, quote, waking up, and feeling that gold, maybe, and feeling GOLD in themselves. And so I wanted to tell us the story of Uncle Mike, because Michael teases me that I killed Uncle Mike, but really I have seen throughout over a year how when Uncle Mike comes online in Michael, as Michael is opening up and channeling his work, Uncle Mike can get spun up in real intensity, and that's fine. It's fine except for when it hurts. And I would hear that happen, and then Michael would get off of a podcast or be finished recording, and mentally he would be hurting, his like body would be hurting. And so if anything, I have helped to prune Uncle Mike, which pruning is partly death to aspects of. But this is kind of the inside alchemy that's been happening within Michael and Uncle Mike. And the character Uncle Mike has been so important in being in Susquehanna Alchemy being gold. And people love Uncle Mike. Um, I don't love when Uncle Mike comes through and hurts Michael's body and mind. And so I have helped to prune and soften and give Uncle Mike a more appropriate seat at the table so that he's not like being, so he's not like dancing on Michael's head and giving him headaches or whatever the aches that he would get. Um, and so there's so much, there's a really rich story here um, around Uncle Mike, and then Mquan coming online through Michael finding that his name Mquan, and Mquan is what they call, is the Algonquin for what they called William Penn. um, so that being a character alchemization, that as Michael was softening Uncle Mike, it made room at the table for Mquan to show up, this like ceremonial leader, this blah, 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 arrow circulator that he's really passionate about. So recently, I'm going to tell this story, but I want to throw in here my disclaimer about God and Goddess, that I believe in both the God and the Goddess, and that throughout all like ancient civilization, all the way up until now, there have been threads of these God and Goddess civilizations weaving, and they're weaving like big, like look like big eagle eye macro vision here. They're weaving a long thread of union where duality is not the domain, but where God and Goddess exist in easeful harmony instead of one being better than the other. So while we're in a civilization, like we're in a very father God patriarchal civilization right now, it seems like one's on top, and there is like a rising and a coming up of the divine feminine and the woman centered society and a return of the goddess. But it's not for the intention of just flipping it where the goddess is on top now. The big, big, big macro picture, I have to believe in my heart, is that history and time and space are taking this container, alchemizing, using this beaker of earth to thread together and coalesce the energy of God and Goddess throughout our times, throughout our civilizations. So that's my disclaimer on that, so we're clear. So as we're going through this, after we posted the first part of the interview, and then we had that step back, Michael posted the video, like throughout all of that, when Michael posted that video of himself kind of talking through Susquehanna Alchemy and the 10 years, and also like describing me and my role and kind of bringing some honor, restoring some honor to my online presence or whatever, I don't know what to call it. We were in separate spaces, and at one point he found himself in a church, and I found like a church like Christian church, so like Christ consciousness and light. And I was in this dark auditorium of a high school at a children's like dance competition, children and adolescents. And he was being asked some of these questions, one of them being like related to born again. And while I was in this space of watching really powerful 6 to 18-year-old girls deliver amazing body movement artistry, painting pictures with their bodies and with each other's like dance formation of like death and grief and suicide and social media and haunting, um, raw feminine sexuality, like all of this. And the age ranges are 6 to 18. So I'm sure there were some parents who were uncomfortable in the audience. I even questioned some of it, but I also came back to just hoping that our community is ready for what these young people, these young women are able to bring forth. Because I found myself in this almost this like goddess cave underworld of like raw feminine dark sexuality. And when I heard, so Michael's in church and I'm at this dance competition and we're texting back and forth. He's like, I was just asked if I was born again. And I was like, wow, I wonder if I could translate his experience over into this space in like the goddess chamber. The priestess might say, have you died? Will you die again and again? You know, like the Isis and Osiris death and resurrection story, but death being the lead and dying being this alchemical process of, and not necessarily like physical death, but pruning, character death, transformation when a person changes and they are no longer the personality that they were before. And so we were having that conversation with each other throughout this whole kind of 10-year celebration, launching a Rivers and Stars ceremony. And Uncle Mike has been this like practice of, you know, like, yes, yes to born again, but also yes to dying again. And how is this character alchemization available in all of us, that we can all look at life and death and be willing to be born again and again. But being born again and again, also that involves dying again and again. You can't have death without life and life without death. They're two sides of the same coin. And like those troll comments were like death arrows shot into my heart. And that's the first rite of passage in Michael's rites of the 40th parallel, is the furnace and destruction. And so while Uncle Mike was created to expand the goals that Michael set forth to reach more people, now there is a kind of a gold feeling of having kind of met one's own desire. And now Uncle Mike isn't needed as much. And Uncle Mike was willing to die a little bit. He was willing to be pruned. And that just goes to show this process of how death and life are both needed for a community and for a being or a humanity to exist in harmony. And then so that being born again being related to Mquan. And if like William Penn could pass forward and be born again, I think that person today might look a lot like Michael Mquan. William Penn wanted to preserve this harmonious relationship that the people had with the land and their rivers. He showed up and he saw what the people were demonstrating, and he said, "This is beautiful. I do not want to destroy this with the coming of my people." And so Mquan being the Algonquin word, there's like a harmony. Oh, there's the dog again. I don't even know if you can hear the dog, but it makes me wild. My nervous system just goes, ah! And so there exists another harmony between this Algonquin word, being Algonquin being a language of the Lenape, who are considered kind of the first peoples, or like the oldest ancestors, carrying forth their lineage of like the tribal people on this part of the continent. And they were not dominators. Like there were other tribes when William Penn showed up who acted in a domination paradigm, and the Lenape were not dominators. And so there is this harmony, because Michael's bottom line is that It's not about patriarch, matriarch. It's not about God, goddess. It's not about good, bad, dark, light. It's about like, can we stop being dominated? Can we stop being dominators? Can we turn from people being led into people being gold? Um, how can we turn back to a relationship with the river, the rivers, and the land being the most important? This harmonious relating being the center and the key. And so Mquan, this Algonquin, potentially Lenape word, is a ceremony leader, a river keeper with powerful access. Um, and so, all of us who stand in Susquehanna alchemy, we are all access points to this meta paradigm shift, this collapse of false facades and timelines um, that that exist to structure the empire that was planted here by the spell casting on the river 400 plus years ago. So, while Uncle Mike is a conspiracy expert and an amazing synchronistic storyteller, and he's still with us, um, Mquan is also now at the table. And it's like woohoo, like more people at the Susquehanna alchemy table in the characters of Michael's mind and his like channeling process. Um, so and so part of this has been like, okay, how can Uncle Mike continue to build a fair and reasonable container, but then also how can Mquan, like how can we give equal resource to these characters who come through Michael, um, because they are kind of like encouraging and inspiring spirits of Susquehanna alchemy, kind of holding, like being this like spiral glue, if you will. Um, so we're going to be building greater kind of form around like YouTube for Uncle Mike to continue being this amazing conspiracy sometimes, but mostly synchronistic storyteller. And then also um, go check out GoFundMe. The link will be in a lot of places, but the link will be under this video. The GoFundMe, if you go to GoFundMe.com and you just type in Rivers and Stars Ceremony, we're the only people doing something like this on GoFundMe. And we can show support for this alchemization of character, this Mquan kind of showing up and being this arrow circulator and inviting people into this really profound way of turning from lead to gold and experiencing the goldedness in oneself and meeting one another in a way that I don't know if any of us can imagine how people met one another in the time when William Penn showed up here on this land. But I'm pretty sure people had very different interactions with one another. And it's not that we should go back, but we can pull forward some of the gold that was buried here in this land and stowed away for us by our ancestors. So go check out the GoFundMe as just a celebration of Mquan and a gratitude to Uncle Michael for the life, for the reborn and the death, for the life and the death that is happening as this alchemy is just like booming in the realm of like Michael's creative world. Um, and so this is all like a mystery, and we just constantly are finding, when we look back over a week or 2 weeks, that we are so being carried in this mystery. And alchemy is happening all the time, even when we're not aware of it. Sometimes we become acutely aware of it, um, and then sometimes it's just happening in the background. And so um let me catch up with myself for a moment. This river, I want to bring it back to the Susquehanna. This river is a mega access point for us to shift in ourselves, in some of the ways that Michael has shifted, in the ways that Michael has gotten a lot of feedback from people saying like, your work has just transformed my inner world, and I'm really grateful. But we can come together as a community of people who see clearly the movement of the current of the river opening up to this meta paradigm shift, and see that society has gone awry in this 400-year empire based container. um, and we can come together keeping clear and open minds for a future that none of us can imagine, because it's not our place to with our conditioned cultured selves to create the new world, to create the new paradigm. It is our responsibility to be open and clear channels and allow for our characters to be transformed, and allow for us to be transformed in community together. Because if you're not interacting with other people, I mean, other people are the most like intense medicine for tough stuff kind of alchemy. And also can be the most precious, tender, sweet, loving space for to be moved by something as powerful as the Susquehanna River, to bring forth a new paradigm that we cannot imagine and that we should not try to imagine, because we don't want to taint it with our limited selves. We want to just keep open and allow the mystery to show us and allow the mystery to design it, and we just apply our inspired vital beingness to what unfolds. And Michael has just been a really amazing and beautiful demonstration and example of that, at least in my eyes. So where will you be on April 8th? Remember, the Susquehanna River is where worldwide, what we're experiencing as worldwide phenomenon now, it grew from seeds planted along the Susquehanna River. So if you're not going to be in Cuyahoga, which is quite possibly like the place to be, get yourself to the river. Come and meet us in Sunbury, because with Michael's support, I'm going to be doing the Sunbury presentation. And holy cow, when we went and visited Sunbury and did the walkabout for the ceremony on April 8th, what a powerful space, and how clearly seeds were planted there to confuse the heck out of us. Yeah, and so from there, we're going to be reclaiming the gold people, and we're going to be carrying ceremony like this on throughout the summer, across the lands to New Mexico, into the fall. And you can help us by, well, I mean, we just want to see you in ceremony, one. But also, if you can't come to ceremony and you want to support us, share the GoFundMe. Go to the GoFundMe and just like follow it, because we'll be posting updates after every ceremony. And we just need we could just use a little bit of financial support to help us carry us through this time, as it's like a high commitment into a system that doesn't monetarily necessarily value or bring money to something like this. And we don't want to have to like lay some type of value on this and say this is what it's worth. Just like whatever feels abundant to you, everyone's on a different scale of what abundance is. And so we're just asking that we all can share whatever feels abundant to you, and so that we can also operate in our abundance, which right now is giving from like this wellspring of inspiration that Susquehanna Alchemy has like brought forth over the last 10 years. So I was gonna share another story. Maybe this is turning into quite a long video and quite a long stream of consciousness, but let me just feel into if I want to go there. Yeah, I think it's a really good wrapping up point for celebrating Miquan, Mquan, Uncle Mike, all of the characters that he shows up as a river keeper, a mystery leader, a peace believer, um, and this rebirth, this forward rebirth of something really really special and unique about Michael. We were at like on like a retreat weekend, um, and this kind of like hoodoo shaman woman was working with me, and um, she had just arrived into the space, and and so she was doing a shamanic journey with me, and the only setup that I gave her was, I really feel like I have strong ancestral connections to the Susquehanna River, and I'm just curious if you could help or see into kind of where my ancestry might be tied or connected, how far back it goes. And so she, oh wow, um, sorry, I just read something in my notes. I want to make sure I go back to it. Um, so she said like throughout the shamanic journey that she could see 7 or 8 great grandfathers ago. One of my great grandfathers, 7 or 8 generations back, was a river surveyor. Like he was one of these original people who came here and like charted out the lands, and he specifically would survey the river. Um, and when we came out of the shamanic journey together, and we were just talking and discussing that, and she was sharing more details about Carlisle and about like encampments that are the schools in Carlisle that they took some of the native children to, and how I probably might not ever be able to find records that far back because just one of my ancestors had mixed blood between European settlers and a native person. Um, and it got tied up in the Carlisle school where they just kind of like effed up all the records. But then she said, she's like, she looked across the circle where Michael was working with someone else. And she was like, I saw your great, 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 great grandfather, the river surveyor. And she might have known that I was with Michael because I had been sitting next to him when she showed up, but she had no idea that he was Michael Wand of Susquehanna Alchemy. And she looked across the circle and she's like, that man you were sitting next to, your 7, 8 grandfathers removed, he looked just like him. And I was like, whoa, okay. So whatever, like I've been on a light search to try to track some of my ancestry um, around the river, and Michael's done videos about like he and I moved to my hometown where his ancestry started like 8 generations or so ago with the Juan line. My mother's, I'm very sure that this great grandfather exists on my maternal ancestral line, which is so hard to track because of all the name changing. Um, but I know that my great great grandmother, she settled her family in Marysville, which is along the Susquehanna River, up on one of the shoulders above Harrisburg, uh, Appalachian Trail Ridge shoulder. And so, I don't have any proof, but maybe the proof is in the pudding, of somehow, Michael and I share this weird ancestral, maybe it's like incestual too, because if he's like the emanation of my great, 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 great grandfather, I don't know, that's kind of weird. But just the idea of him having been a river surveyor, like potentially in my lineage, and now coming forward and being a river alchemist, and we found each other again, and we're bringing back this like nest egg of what Susquehanna alchemy is here for this time after the 400-year container has kind of like passed into a new form. um that's my last story. It's just really, it's an interesting story that I've held on to about a hoodoo shaman. So she's like of African descent, um, and just really feeling into the complexity of our relationship without even knowing him or knowing our relationship or Susquehanna alchemy. Um, so yeah, just this Mquan is like a forward rebirth of someone who could this I imagine this river surveyor in my mother's lineage um could see the special currency in the banks of the Susquehanna. And I don't know what his relationship was with having to report back what he surveyed to the queen and whose nation, or country he reported back to. But I just imagine he could see the special currency, and knew that for his time he would just have to like breathe it forward into one of his seventh generations to come. um and there it is, life and death are alchemical. They're both an invitation for us to be mastered by and be power filled, love centric beings who are not masters dominating, but we are masterfully created beings who are artists, both being painted with and painting with the currency of the river that is flowing through us all. We are the beakers for this earth experiment, to manifest whatever stellar outcomes the beings are looking for. So I'm so honored to be a part of this. Like what it feels like, it's like this mega online expansion is ending, but it's like stabilizing into this like on ground movement across the land in ceremony with people. um, and it's just this stabilization to expand again, and bigger and more exciting ways. I'm humbled to be the beloved of such a cosmic minded man, and be here in service to provide extra. I'm gonna say that if you can hear that dog barking, she's barking in celebration with what I'm saying. I'm honored to be the beloved who can be of service to giving extra earth, for his cosmic mindedness to land and ground and stabilize, so that he can evolve and grow into this like arrow circulating Mquan. I'm not saying that I've done it all. I'm just humbled that I get to be in service to someone who will take every opportunity to alchemize within himself to change and grow and transform. Um, and so, yeah, so that all of us can like step in more intimately into the experience of Susquehanna alchemy, the meta paradigm river magic. Um, so let me just catch up on my notes one more time. I promise this is the last paragraph. Life and death and light and dark, they don't have to hurt. Even though I will admit I was very hurt, by the comments that were had. But we can also choose to learn from love instead of pain. And I'm totally stealing a line from my favorite Swedish musician, Fia. And so the more we relax into ourselves and into each other, the more we can meet light and dark, death and life, our masculine side, our feminine side, with less resistance. Resistance seems to be the fertilization for pain to take root. And when pain takes root, we know what that breeds. Hurt people, kind of colloquial stuff. And so it is my hope that part of Susquehanna Alchemy, part of this meta paradigm shift, without wanting to look forward and say this is how it needs to be, or this is how it is, or I want my community to look like this. It is just my hope that we can be launching arrows of love into one another and transforming from an abundance of love, and that we move through pain just so much more quickly and with so much less resistance, so that it doesn't have to be this kind of suffering that our society has undergone and quite gone awry from. But I recognize and I am grateful that we are here at this point, because this is the point that brings us into launching things like Rivers and Stars Ceremony Tour, um, and into a space of high artistry and of love, circulating through one another, through self, as we do this spiral dance together. So come out and join us on the river, one of the rivers. We're going to be at more than just this. We're going to be along more than just the Susquehanna River banks this year. Go check out GoFundMe. You can just go to gofundme.com and type in Rivers and Stars Ceremony, and that'll bring up our page, and you can read the story. There's a story there. You can check out our updates. It's also how you will kind of like register or let us know that you're coming to a ceremony, because we'll be sending details through GoFundMe about each ceremony space. Yeah, so Godspeed to you as you weave life, death, light, dark, masculine, and feminine. And as we all allow this currency to move through us, and as we to be mastered by the mystery. Big love to the river, to Susquehanna, to Michael, to each of you for being covert alchemical masters, and some of you being overtly, clearly alchemical masters, artists in this paradigm ruled by big hate sometimes. But big love to the mission of Susquehanna Alchemy. Please join us on the river if you can. We would love to be meeting. We meet in these groups of people, and it's just a beautiful, powerful experience. Thank you for being my witness, for being my ears, and may we see each other on the other side of this screen. Bye.